Hi everyone. I don't know how I'm going to top that. It's impossible. So my job here is actually quite simple, right? Which is that you guys read a lot of things, listen to a lot of people talk about these fantastic buzzwords about sustainability, environment, billions of euros, dollars, energy, hydrogen, and all those things, right? In the context of this, Tim spoke about a uniquely Aperam story, and my job is to come back and explain to all of you what this uniqueness means in terms of value. So, one of the things I'm going to do today, or try to do, is demystify this word sustainability in terms of value. Okay? Because there's three things I want you guys to keep in mind as we go through these slides. First is the exciting opportunities my colleagues have spoken about and the value from these streams. The second one is how these are not dreams of the future but are happening today in practical and clear means. And third, we are Aperam and efficiency is in our DNA, and how we are doing it in the most Aperam way possible, which is looking at how we invest shareholder capital in all these existing projects, right? So please keep these three things in your mind as we go through all these exciting opportunities and look at the value. So to start with, this is something which is a typical CFO chart. I would like to walk you through what we are doing in terms of E. In terms of environment, it is very easy to think that, okay, there are past traditional businesses and there are these exciting new opportunities. But it's important to remember sustainability, if it is going to happen, metals are going to be at the core of it. And recycling is going to be at the core of it. And if you remember, metals and recycling are at the core of Aperam. So, on three stages, we are going to do this. The first stage is our existing businesses. We are using the E-revolution to transform and decommoditize our existing businesses. The second phase, which is all these fantastic new value streams you've heard about today, we can clearly see the gains in our books, and these are production ready. Some of these, like recycling, are in production. And the last part, which is what most companies like to talk to you about, which is selling the dream, is the upside of carbon, which is truly the way we view it at Aperam, something which we are working towards, and if it happens for an investor, a fantastic upside. And we are confident that this will happen, and I will walk you through with some really worst case scenarios, and even in these scenarios, how much money we are going to make. Just for the record, on a value basis, we expect from the first two phases a minimum of 100 million euros of returns in EBITDA, out of which 40 million euros has been planned in already in our next Leadership Journey 5. And I've given you a legend on how CapEx heavy or light these businesses are. First step, decommoditizing traditional businesses. So I always, when I talk to my commercial guys, one thing they like to say, and I give them full credit, is stainless is moving out of your kitchen into industry. So we are really living the second phase of stainless. So the first part of our stainless business, if you look at it, we are going into mobility and energy. And our investments we've made, and last Leadership Journey, we've announced the investments in our AOD in Henk or the cold rolling mill in Guignon, will help us and are already starting to deliver solutions, for example, for the EV. In alloys, we have basically reduced 3 cold rolling mills to 1 in Guinea and expanded our capacity. In Guinea, this capex has been announced in the past. And because of this growth in capacity, today we can fulfill the growth in LNG demand which is coming. Brazil, Frederico has talked about electrical steel growth. There, we are moving up in mix. We have announced a HGO, which is a high-quality grain-oriented steel announcement. As Brazil goes, Frederico has explained 32% growth in transmission and distribution of electricity over the next 10 years. So there we have seen value and we will see value. And last but not the least, in recycling, you remember our investment in recycling when we purchased ELG. And we clearly said that the aerospace size of the business is something for us new, and it is a space where we will actually see value come along. And this is a business, if you don't know, we are the world's largest recycler of aerospace alloys. If you are west of the Danube River and have flown in a plane in the last 10 years, your engine has been recycled by an Aperam company. So clearly, the current businesses are changing due to the investments we are making and will deliver already in Leadership Journey 5. And that's how E is helping us in the current businesses. Next, we move to the new value streams. We have discussed enough about recycling in the past slides. There's 2 points I'd like to add to this. The first one is that we have increased our synergy target from raw material valorization from 24 million to 40 million. We're confident of doing that because we see the value in the recycling business. The second thing is that we are confident also because of our own expansion in the recycling business, that by the end of the decade, which is not a long time, right? Tim committed and promised that we are continuing to perform along the 2025 targets. So if you take a next milestone to 2030, we believe that our recycling business target should be higher than 100 million euros. The next part is about Resico. Bernard has explained the process to you. Take everything which is, in this case, a waste from 2 businesses and actually deliver value out of that. Now, important to keep in mind, it's an old stainless mill with very little capex requirements. I promised you in the beginning, the way we as Aperam do it is with capital efficiency. We keep shareholder capital in mind. So this is not a brand facility spent with billions of euros of expense. This is a retrofit of the existing steel plant from the 50s. And we continue to improve the processes there to use pyrometallurgy to actually convert waste in the north of France into valuable material. So the point in Resico is also that this material is not just in terms of CO2 footprint, but also cost effective compared to primary nickel, which it replaces. Resico, we said, will add a double-digit million EBITDA until 2030. The next one is Bioenergia. You've seen this fascinating presentation. Let me give you a couple of numbers behind it. Number 1, forest area expansion. We're expanding 24% target until 2030. Annual planting area is 18% increase. Wood density growth is 25% till 2020, another 30% we expect till 2050. Now, these can look like typical graphs for you, and they don't mean anything. So let me decode it for you. First thing, you take money and buy forests or forest companies, mergers and acquisitions. Second, you do continuous improvement and keep increasing your planting area in the existing area. Third, you invest in innovation and you actually increase the amount of carbon captured by a single tree over a period of time. So it clearly shows this is not just you put in a seedling, pour some water, and trees grow. There is a lot of human effort, resources, ingenuity, innovation which goes. And it also clearly says the choices we make on capital efficiency. What does that mean? I can increase 18% by buying 18% surface area by acquiring a company. But then I have to pay a premium to the shareholder. I can choose to actually optimize and increase the plant area. I can increase the forest area by buying 25% increased land. But I choose to actually work on innovation and amount of carbon captured by a tree, increase it by 25%. So basically, these are not either or options. However, I want to make it clear to you that these are options which we consider carefully where we actually plan this growth and nothing is left out. And before I move from the bioenergy slide, because this was a topic of conversation during lunch, the planting machine you saw there, just to give you an example, was actually the prototype was used somewhere in Scandinavia in wood pulp machines. We've bought it, adapted it to the Brazilian climate, to the rains, made it a multi-operation, which means it can be used for fertilizers and seeding. And for the analysts among you who are cracking numbers, we used to have more than 100 people actually used for more than 2 months to plant forests every year. Today we use 10% of that overnight operation during 14 to 20 days in the rainy season. So there's no wastage of water. There's reduction of cost because the people are not working there for 2 months. And actually, we use these people basically in other areas where we are growing so that it is a cliche, but it's a win-win situation. And then I come to the last part, which is the upside of carbon. First, if someone comes and tells you we have a brand which is low carbon, zero carbon, everything. In our industry, most of our peers, if not all of our peers, have only one way to reduce their carbon footprint, which is to actually go and buy scrap from somebody else, and as a result, increase their scrap ratio. Because of our differentiated value chain here, Aperam has unique ways of reducing its carbon footprint. And today already, we have pilots, and that's the reason we put it on the upside part. Pilots where customers pay a premium to actually get reduced carbon products. The volume growth on this, plus the price premium, we expect, and this is why we call it the upside of carbon, a low double-digit EBITDA contribution. The next part, Bena spoke about this, is carbon border adjustment mechanism, which is a uniquely European concept to price rightfully the carbon emitted by the different processes. Just the math on that, it's 8 tons of carbon dioxide between us and imports. Today, a spot price of CO2 is at a very low level because of activity. Let's take that, $50. So it's a simple math, you can multiply. And even if you take 10% of that, it's 40 euros per ton more than today as a price premium. Now, there are 2 things to keep in mind. First, stainless is the only process in which we consider scope 3, but so it is true emissions by the process. which means, as Bena explained, it goes back till the sourced alloys as well. The second thing is that in all other industries, carbon steel, aluminum, a carbon border adjustment mechanism, the price premium and the added benefits which will come to the company is used for transforming the footprint. The billions of euros necessary to transform the footprint into a CO2 free operation. Bena has showed you the capex. In case of stainless, this 8 times 50 or whatever that number is going to be is purely a premium to the investors in a stainless business. That's a difference if you're covering metals and the difference between the different metals companies. Then we come to even more new business models. We've heard about bio oil. So basically, the process is here. You can read it directly. What used to go up as smoke and actually damage our carbon footprint today is captured and converted into bio oil. And we made, because this was such a landmark process, we made actually a sale of this oil and published a press release about it. I like actually the Portuguese word which differentiates between carbon mineral and carbon vegetal, which basically clearly explains the added advantage of this oil. If you take it from the ground, you have it with a lot of sulfur. And this one, because you take the carbon from the air, there is no sulfur because the trees filter it already. So you get a value and a premium for that. And it's very capex-light process. The advantage we have in Brazil in our operations is we are the world's largest charcoal producer, which means that we have the scale and the technology to actually capture this. Let us look at the value, and we're looking at another low double-digit EBITDA contribution until 2030. The next one, botanical. Bena has in detail explained you to the process. Let me just touch upon 2 points. One is the fact that as we have looked at, we still buy, will continue to buy even with our scrap footprint, a limited amount of primary nickel. And our goal is that botanical will cover a large part of this primary nickel need with low CO2 footprint until 2030. The second thing is that this output of botanical in terms of nickel cash costs, and please ignore the negative column, that is because some people subsidize nickel costs with cheap byproducts like platinum. But end of the day, if you look at it, it is at the low second quartile. So it's very competitive. It makes business sense. Again, growing forests or plants is a low capex business in terms of M&A. And it has the added benefit of, as Bena has explained, remediate the land and then give it back to agriculture. So any asset you invest in technically goes back. Again, low double-digit EBITDA by 2030. And then we come to the discussion where the professor in the video explained in detail about biochar. And we have to be clear. Biochar is something which we used to sell as fines, and it was used as a low-margin product which was sold externally. Today, we use a pyrolytic process and convert it into biochar. And this biochar acts as a fertilizer and a clear carbon capture for hundreds of years. Right? Now, it is something which you probably notice downstairs. Right? You have small packets. So if you want your personal contribution to carbon capture and you want to help enrich your own personal garden or your parents' garden if you don't have one and live in Paris, please take a packet. It's your personal contribution to carbon capture. The point is, end of the day, in this business model, today we have a partnership with a traded exchange where you can buy CO2 credits generated at Aperam. It's a pilot, but you can buy that. Again, a low double-digit EBITDA contribution by end of 2030. So through the cycle, recycling and renewables, we believe will double its EBITDA until the end of 2030. You remember I spoke about 5 ideas in this upside of carbon. Let's take the worst case of low double digit, which is 10 million. That's 5 times 10, it's 50 million, just to do the math. The added benefit is growing in this segment softens our earnings volatility as well. So that's the economics of the E. And I have a couple of charts which I've brought to show you how do we practice this. The first one is this, which is we do not want to use sustainability as a word to actually, we say in German, throw money out of the window. The use of capital efficiency is absolutely important. 2 pilots. The alloys team came to us when, unfortunately, the Ukraine crisis happened. And we foresaw that a 7-year plan to expand into LNG has now become a 3-year plan. You could buy another player and expand there and pay a premium to the current owners. Or you could invest 50 million capex. The net working capital build is 200 million just because the nickel and all the raw material prices went up. If they normalize, it's going to come to 150. And the additional EBITDA is 50 million. So you're looking at a 4-year simple return. The capital efficiency focus is that we are not investing in new facilities. We are using the upstream and downstream in our European stainless facilities to actually re-equip the equipment at lower cost and lower capex to use them to expand the capacity of alloys. The other focus, bioenergy. Capital efficiency also means not just reducing the capex and reducing. It also means investing in the right places, even if we believe that the scenario is critical. Last year, one of the most difficult years in metals in the past cycle, we still spent 51 million for M&A for our bioenergy business. Full run rate, 15 million euros. For 3.5 years for simple return. So, importantly, capital efficiency focus, it is designed as a JV with our largest supplier in Brazil. As a result, ferrochrome we get back from them will also have a scope 3 reduction. So, efficiency of shareholder capital employed for us, I would say, is even more important in the sustainability space. And then I come to the last slide, where I'd like to use a chart which Tim told you. This is a chart which shows a nice story of the new growth businesses in specialty, in sustainability, in supply chain, which is our SNS business, for example. They drive base dividend growth. We have a progressive dividend policy. They drive base dividend growth. And they contribute to a solid balance sheet and reduce earnings volatility. And then the cyclical business, which will have up cycles and low cycles. They boost shareholder returns, and they will fund the reinvestment in new earning streams as they happen. Our financial policy has been split a little artificially into these 2 parts, but that's the principle. Now, that's a story that every CFO shows you, right? Now, let me use Tim's numbers. He showed you a case in 2020. We made, in Europe, 100 million EBITDA out of a total Aperam EBITDA of 300 million. 293 to be exact. In 2023, Europe made minus 43 million out of a total Aperam EBITDA of 304 million. Which means this is an action already in the past where 200 million euro EBITDA missing from the European business thanks to energy crisis, inflation, and a slowdown market at the low bottom of the cycle has been compensated, or there is a contribution from these businesses we are talking about. So it's nice to tell your story and make you wait for 3 years to see it in action. This time we have brought actually that just the difference between 2020 and 2023 shows clearly in numbers how the story is in action. So that brings me to the end of this presentation. The one thing I do want you guys to all remember is that we use these new earning streams to actually complement existing businesses. We believe existing businesses clearly have value, and like Tim said, cycle, cycle, cycle. It will help us to deliver value across the cycle. Thank you.